He thought it was funny to knee the new waitress in the face right in front of a packed Friday crowd. Phones captured every second. Laughter echoed off the neon-lit walls. For 30 brutal seconds, Stephen Cook felt like a king. But here's the thing about La Fiamma Bar sometimes. The quiet floor you're standing on belongs to someone who doesn't forgive. When she looked up with blood on her lips and didn't cry, the room went cold. The kind of cold that means someone just signed their own death warrant. What Stephen didn't know was who owned the building he was bleeding her in, and who was already walking through the door. If you're hooked in and want to enjoy this story, go ahead and subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see where everyone's watching. Plus, tomorrow I've got another incredible story lined up, and you definitely don't want to miss it. Alright, back to the story. It's a cold Friday night at La Fiamma, the most respected and feared bar in Southside Manhattan. Neon lights hum above polished counters, laughter and jazz blending with the clinking of whiskey glasses. Linda Mays, 24, nervous but determined, begins her first shift. She's quiet, observant, Latina, her apron perfectly tied, her eyes scanning the chaos with quiet professionalism. A rude customer snaps his fingers. She rushes over, accidentally spilling whiskey on his sleeve. Stephen Cook, the bar's manager, muscular, cocky, and dressed in a black vest, smirks from behind the counter. "You trying to drown my customers, sweetheart?" The crowd laughs. Linda apologizes, but Stephen doesn't let her go. He grabs her wrist, hard. Phones come out. This is what happens when we hire from the streets. Then the knee. It lands hard. She crumples, holding her face as laughter turns into uneasy silence. A drop of blood hits the floor. The bar door creaks. Heavy footsteps echo. Walter Lopez, the owner, tall, tattooed, wearing a long black coat, walks in, eyes locked on the scene. What happened here? No one answers, but he already knows. Stephen's mouth opens, but nothing comes out. His confidence evaporates. Walter moves forward, his coat sweeping past frozen patrons. He doesn't look at Stephen yet. His attention is fixed on Linda, still on her knees, blood dripping onto the polished hardwood. He crouches beside her, surprisingly gentle. "Can you stand?" Linda nods, trembling. Walter extends his hand-tattooed knuckles, calloused palm, and waits. She takes it. As Linda rises, the room sees the damage. Blood streaks from her nose to her chin. Her left eye swells. Her white blouse is ruined. Walter's jaw tightens. "Look at me," he says quietly. Linda lifts her gaze, expecting pity. Instead, she finds recognition, like he'd seen this before. "You did nothing wrong." Not a question, a fact. "I spilled." "You did nothing wrong." Stephen finally speaks. "Walter, man, she messed up." "Shut your mouth." 2 words. Stephen's jaw snaps shut. Walter straightens, still holding Linda's arm. He turns to face Stephen, and the room freezes. "Tyler, take her to the back office. First aid kit's in the bottom drawer." Tyler scrambles forward. "Yes, boss." Linda hesitates, but Tyler guides her away. The moment she disappears, Walter's expression changes. The gentle concern vanishes. What remains is the man who built an empire on fear. "Everybody out." The crowd doesn't move. Phones still stream. I said, "Everybody, out." Chairs scrape. Glasses are abandoned. Within 90 seconds, La Fiamma empties except for Walter, Stephen, and 1 bartender. "You too," Walter tells the bartender. The bartender flees. The door locks. Stephen stands alone, surrounded by broken glass and Linda's blood. "Walter, listen. So you need her in the face. I was making an example. In my bar. Your bar needs discipline. My bar has one rule. Respect is earned and enforced, but you don't enforce it on the defenseless. You don't put your knee through a woman's face while people film it." Walter steps closer. "You just made La Fiamma look like we tolerate that." "I'll apologize." "You'll do more than that." Stephen backs up. "Walter, we've known each other 3 years, and you learned nothing." Walter shrugs off his coat, rolling up his sleeves, exposing saints and sinners inked in black and gray. "You got 3 seconds to pray, Stephen." "Wait. 3. Please. 2. Stephen runs for the back door. He makes it 5 steps before Walter's fist catches his spine. Stephen hit the floor hard, gasping. The impact knocked the air from his lungs, leaving him wheezing on the same hardwood where Linda had bled minutes earlier. Walter stood over him, breathing controlled, fists clenched at his sides. His shadow fell across Stephen's body like a burial shroud. "Get up," Stephen coughed, scrambling backward on his elbows. Walter, please, I didn't know you'd. Get up. This time Stephen obeyed, pulling himself upright against the bar. His legs shook. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold air conditioning. Walter didn't advance. He just watched, studying Stephen the way a surgeon studies a tumor before cutting it out. 3 years you've worked for me, Walter said quietly. 3 years. And you never understood what this place is. I run this bar every night. You manage inventory and pour drinks. But you never understood what La Fiamma means. Stephen's eyes darted toward the exits, calculating distances, weighing chances. Don't, Walter warned. You run, and this gets worse. Stephen froze. Walter moved to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey with steady hands. He slid one across the counter toward Stephen. Drink. Stephen stared at the glass like it might be poisoned. I said drink. Stephen grabbed the glass with trembling fingers and downed it in one burning gulp. Walter sipped his slowly, never breaking eye contact. My father opened this bar in 1987, Walter began, his voice eerily calm. Back then, this neighborhood was a war zone. Drugs on every corner, bodies in every alley. The cops didn't come here unless they were dirty or desperate. Stephen listened, too terrified to interrupt. My father built La Fiamma on one principle: respect. Not fear, respect. You could be a criminal, a cop, a saint, or a sinner. Didn't matter. But you respected people under this roof, or you didn't come back. Walter set his glass down with a soft click. When I was 8 years old, I watched a man slap my mother across this very bar because she served him the wrong beer. Stephen's face went pale. My father didn't yell, didn't argue. He walked that man into the back room just like we're standing here now, and when he came out 20 minutes later, he was alone. The man was never seen again. The silence between them was deafening. My father told me something that night, Walter continued. He said, Mijo, you can rule by fear, but that makes you a tyrant. You can rule by money, but that makes you a slave. You rule by respect, and you build something that lasts. Walter stepped closer, and Stephen pressed harder against the bar. So, when I saw you knee that girl in the face, when I saw you humiliate someone defenseless in front of a crowd for your own ego, I didn't just see a manager overstepping. I saw everything my father taught me being pissed on. I'm sorry, Stephen whispered. I swear, I'll never. You're right, you never will. In one fluid motion, Walter grabbed a bottle from behind the bar, expensive scotch, aged 20 years, and smashed it against the counter. Glass exploded. Amber liquid pooled across the wood. Stephen flinched, raising his arms defensively. But Walter didn't swing at him. He just stood there, holding the broken bottleneck, letting Stephen imagine what could happen. You know what the worst part is? Walter asked softly. It's not even the violence. I've done worse to people who deserved it. The worst part is you did it for entertainment. You humiliated that girl to make people laugh, to feel big. He dropped the broken bottle. It shattered further against the floor. That makes you weak. Walter turned away, walking toward the hallway where Linda had disappeared. Stephen exhaled in relief too soon. Walter stopped at the doorway, his back still turned. Pack your things. You've got 1 hour to clear out your locker and leave Manhattan. If I see you in this borough again, if I even hear your name in this city, I'll finish what I started tonight. Walter, this is my job. My life. Walter glanced back over his shoulder, and Stephen saw something in those dark eyes that made his blood freeze. You should have thought about that before you made her bleed on my floor. Walter disappeared down the hallway, leaving Stephen alone with the broken glass, the spilled whiskey, and the ghost of every bad decision he'd ever made. In the back office, Linda sat on a desk, holding ice wrapped in a bar towel against her face. Tyler stood awkwardly nearby, having cleaned most of the blood away. The door opened. Walter entered, and Tyler immediately excused himself. Walter and Linda were alone. How's the pain? He asked. Manageable. Your nose isn't broken. Eye's gonna swell, but you'll be fine. Linda lowered the ice, studying him with her one good eye. What did you do to him? What he deserved. That's not an answer. Walter almost smiled. Almost. He's leaving. Tonight. You won't see him again. Linda processed this, then asked the question that had been burning since he walked in. Why? Why what? Why defend me? You don't know me. Walter was quiet for a long moment. Because someone should have defended my mother. The words hung in the air between them, raw, unplanned, more honest than Walter had intended. Linda studied his face, seeing past the tattoos and the hardened exterior to something wounded underneath. Your mother, she said softly. Not a question. An acknowledgement. Walter's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being seen this clearly, especially not by someone he'd just met. It was a long time ago, he said, his voice flat, trying to close the door he'd accidentally opened. But you still remember. Every day. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, it was understanding. Two people who'd learned the same lesson from different teachers. The world doesn't protect you. Sometimes you have to protect yourself. Walter cleared his throat, stepping back into the role of boss. You should go home. Get some rest. Take the weekend off. Are you firing me? The question caught him off guard. What? No. Then I'll finish my shift. Linda, you just got… I know what happened to me, she interrupted, lowering the ice pack. Her left eye was swollen nearly shut, bruises already blooming purple across her cheekbone. And I know what happens if I leave now. Walter frowned. What do you mean? I mean everyone out there with their phones saw me get knocked down. If I run home crying, that's the story. Girl gets humiliated and quits. That's what goes viral. That's what people remember. She stood up, wincing slightly but steady. But if I walk back out there and finish my shift, then the story changes. Then I'm the one who didn't break. Walter stared at her, genuinely impressed. Most people would have taken the exit he offered, the easy out, the victim card. But Linda Mays wasn't most people. You're tougher than I thought, he admitted. I've had practice. Something in the way she said it told Walter there were stories there. Stories that probably looked a lot like his own. All right, he said finally. But you're not serving tables tonight. Work the bar with Tyler. Let people see your face, but keep your distance. Linda nodded. And Stephen? Gone. He won't bother you again. You sure about that? Walter's expression darkened. I'm very sure. 20 minutes later, Linda emerged from the back hallway into a bar that had slowly refilled. Word had spread fast, some customers had returned, curious, while others had arrived fresh, drawn by the rumors circulating online. Every conversation stopped when they saw her. Linda walked behind the bar, her head held high despite the swelling and bruising. She tied a clean apron around her waist and picked up a bottle of vodka like nothing had happened. Tyler leaned close, whispering, You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. The first customer approached a middle-aged woman in a business suit, eyes wide with recognition. Oh my God, you're the girl from the video. Are you okay? Linda managed a small smile. I'm working. What can I get you? Vodka tonic. But sweetie, shouldn't you be at a hospital? The hospital can't pay my rent. Vodka tonic coming up. The response rippled through the nearby tables. Phones came out again, but this time the narrative was different. This time they weren't filming a victim, they were filming a survivor. Walter watched from his usual corner booth. Arms crossed, a ghost of pride crossing his features. An hour passed. Then two. Linda worked methodically, her movements careful but confident. Customers watched her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Some left generous tips. Others whispered among themselves, spreading the new version of tonight's story. Around midnight, Tyler printed out the night's receipts, and his eyes went wide. Linda, you need to see this. She glanced at the numbers. Despite the chaos, despite losing an hour to the incident, despite everything, La Fiamma had its best Friday night revenue in 6 months. People came to see if you'd show up, Tyler explained. Half these customers weren't even here earlier. They heard what happened and came too. I don't know, witness it, support you? Linda didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Near closing time, Walter approached the bar. He pulled out a piece of chalk and the small blackboard they used for daily specials. What are you doing? Linda asked. He didn't answer, just wrote in clean, bold letters. Respect is served here. He placed it prominently at the bar's entrance, visible from the street. New house rule, he said simply. Linda looked at the sign, then at Walter. You're really changing things, aren't you? No, he corrected. I'm remembering what they should have been all along. As the last customers filtered out, Linda untied her apron, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Walter? He looked up from counting the register. Thank you. For tonight. For… She gestured vaguely. Everything. Walter nodded once, a small, controlled movement that somehow conveyed more than words could. Go home, Linda. Ice that eye. I'll see you Monday. She headed for the exit, pausing at the door to look back at the sign one more time. Respect is served here. For the first time all night, she smiled, a real one, despite the pain. Maybe this job wouldn't be so bad after all. Linda woke up Saturday afternoon to 847 missed calls. Her phone had been buzzing all night, but exhaustion and painkillers had knocked her out cold. Now, lying in her small studio apartment in Washington Heights, she stared at the screen in disbelief. Text messages flooded in from numbers she didn't recognize. Her Instagram had exploded 12,000 new followers overnight. Her mentions were a war zone of opinions, rage, and support she hadn't asked for. She clicked on the first video link someone had sent. Manager assaults waitress at Manhattan bar. 2.3 meters views. Her stomach dropped. There she was, frozen in a moment she'd tried to forget Steven's knee connecting with her face, her body crumpling, blood hitting the floor. The angle was perfect, the lighting crystal clear. Someone had filmed it vertically, formatted perfectly for viral consumption. The comments section was a battlefield. That manager needs to be arrested. She should sue for everything. This is what happens when men have unchecked power. Anyone know her name? She's a warrior for coming back out. La Fiamma bar needs to be shut down. Linda's hands shook. She kept scrolling. Another video. Waitress returns to work after brutal assault. 890K views. This one showed her walking back onto the floor, swollen eye and all, tying her apron with steady hands. The caption read, "This is what strength looks like." Her phone rang. Unknown number. She declined it. It rang again immediately. Different number. She turned it off completely and sat in the silence of her apartment, ice pack pressed against her face, trying to process how her worst moment had become the world's entertainment. Across town, Walter sat in his lawyer's office, listening to a lecture he'd heard variations of 100 times before. "The police are asking questions," Marcus Brennan said, pacing behind his mahogany desk. "They've seen the videos. They want to know where Stephen Cook is." Walter sipped his coffee unbothered. "Stephen quit. Left the city. Convenient timing. Very." Marcus stopped pacing, leaning forward on his desk. "Walter, I've kept you out of trouble for 15 years, but this is different. This isn't backroom business. This is public. This is viral. The DA's office is getting calls. Pressure's mounting." "Let them come. Let them," Marcus rubbed his temples. "You understand what happens if they find Stephen and he talks? If he says you assaulted him? Threatened him?" Walter set his coffee down with deliberate calm. "Stephen won't talk. How can you be so sure?" "Because he knows what happens if he does." The certainty in Walter's voice made Marcus fall silent. Some questions were better left unasked. "What about the girl?" Marcus asked instead. "Linda Mays. Is she pressing charges?" "No." "How do you know?" "Because I know." Marcus studied his client, this man who'd built an empire on violence and loyalty, who somehow always landed on his feet, who treated morality like a negotiable contract. "The internet thinks you're a monster," Marcus said quietly. "Half the comments are calling for your arrest, saying La Fiamma is a front for abuse, that you enable this behavior." For the first time, Walter's expression shifted. Not anger, something closer to regret. "What does the other half say?" Marcus pulled up his phone, reading. "That boss walked in like an avenging angel. Stephen got what he deserved. More owners should protect their people like this." Walter almost smiled. "See? Balance. This isn't a joke. I never said it was." Marcus sat down heavily. "What's your play here, Walter? Because the optics are bad. Manager assaults employee, disappears the same night the owner confronts him. It writes itself." Walter stood, buttoning his coat. "My play is simple. I run my bar the way my father taught me. With respect. Stephen broke that code, and he faced consequences. If the DA wants to make something of it, they can try. And if they come for you?" Walter headed for the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. "Then they better bring everyone." By Sunday morning, the story had morphed beyond recognition. News outlets picked it up. Viral video exposes workplace violence at high-end Manhattan bar. Think pieces appeared. Why we still tolerate abuse in service industry. Activists called for boycotts. Others called for Walter's arrest. Linda's phone stayed off, but the world kept spinning without her consent. Her landlord knocked on her door, concerned. Her mother called the building super when Linda wouldn't answer. Finally, around noon, she opened the door to find her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, holding a container of soup. "You're famous," Mrs. Chen said gently, "but you look terrible. Eat." Linda took the soup, tears finally breaking through. "I just wanted a job," she whispered. "I just wanted to work." Mrs. Chen pulled her into a hug, careful of her injuries, and let her cry. Outside, The city debated justice and violence and power. Inside a small apartment in Washington Heights, a 4-year-old woman just wanted the world to stop watching, but the internet never forgets. And neither does Walter Lopez. Monday morning arrived like a verdict. Linda stood outside La Fiamma at 9 a.m., staring at the locked doors. Her reflection stared back from the tinted glass, faded bruises, a yellowing eye, a face the entire internet recognized. She'd spent Sunday hiding. Now she had a choice. Disappear into the noise, or reclaim her narrative. She knocked. Footsteps echoed inside. The lock turned. Walter opened the door, dressed in a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked tired, more human than the avenging figure from Friday night. "You came," he said, surprised. "You told me to come back Monday. I didn't think you would." Linda stepped inside. The bar looked different in daylight, smaller, less mythical. Just tables and chairs, and the lingering smell of whiskey and lemon cleaner. "Have you seen the news?" she asked. "All of it. People think you're a criminal." "I am a criminal." The bluntness caught her off guard. Walter moved behind the bar. Starting a pot of coffee like this was a normal Monday morning conversation. "I've broken laws," he continued. "Hurt people. Done things I can't take back. But I've never pretended to be something I'm not." Linda sat on a bar stool, watching him work. "Then why protect me? Why risk all this attention for someone you don't even know?" Walter poured 2 cups, sliding one across to her. "You want the truth or the version that makes me look better?" "The truth." He leaned against the counter, meeting her eyes. "Because when I saw you on that floor, I saw my mother, 27 years ago, in almost this exact spot. And I was 8 years old, watching, unable to do anything." Linda's chest tightened. "My father handled it his way," Walter continued. "Violent, final, permanent. And it worked. People respected him after that, feared him. But I remember my mother's face more than anything. Not the bruise, not the blood. The look in her eyes when she realized no one had moved to help her until my father walked in." He took a long drink of coffee. That look said, "I'm alone. And I swore I'd never let anyone feel that way under this roof again." Linda processed this, the weight of inherited trauma sitting between them like a third presence. "Your father," she asked carefully. "What happened to the man who hit her?" "He disappeared. Nobody asked questions, and you learned from that." "I learned violence has consequences, sometimes necessary ones." Linda set her cup down. "Walter, what you did to Stephen, was that necessary or personal?" The question landed hard. Walter's expression flickered defensiveness, then something more honest. "Both," he admitted. "And that's what worries me." "Why?" "Because my father taught me loyalty, not empathy. He taught me how to command respect through fear. But you," he gestured at her, "you didn't cry, didn't beg. You stood back up and finished your shift. That's not fear, that's dignity. And I don't know how to lead with that." The vulnerability in his voice was startling. This man, this walking legend of Southside Manhattan, was confessing doubt. "Then maybe it's time you learned," Linda said quietly. Walter looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "You want to honor your father's code?" she continued. "Stop ruling like him. Start building something different, something better." "You think it's that simple?" "No. But I think you already know what needs to change. You're just scared to admit the old way is broken." Silence filled the bar, not uncomfortable, but charged with possibility. Walter pushed off the counter, walking toward the back office. "Come with me." Linda followed him down the hallway, past framed photos of the bar's history, black and white images of Walter's father, young and stern, surrounded by men who looked more like soldiers than staff. Walter's office was sparse: a desk, filing cabinets, a wall safe, and one window overlooking the alley. He pulled a folder from the desk drawer. "These are complaints," he said, opening it. "From staff over the past 3 years. Harassment, intimidation, unpaid overtime. I ignored most of them because that's how things worked. Keep your head down. Earn your place. Survive." He dropped the folder on the desk. "Stephen wasn't the problem. He was a symptom. And I let it fester because I was too busy maintaining an image to actually lead." Linda picked up the folder, scanning the pages. Names she didn't recognize, stories that sounded too familiar. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Walter met her gaze, and for the first time since Friday, she saw something beyond the enforcer, beyond the boss. She saw a man trying to be better. "I'm going to clean house," he said. "Anyone who broke the code, who abused their position, who made this place feel unsafe, they're gone. New rules. New standards. And who decides those standards? Walter smiled faintly. I was hoping you'd help with that. Linda stared at him, stunned. Me? You asked what's the difference between justice and anger. Show me. The call came Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m. Walter was already awake, nursing black coffee in his apartment overlooking the Hudson, when his phone vibrated. The number was unlisted but familiar, one of his contacts in the NYPD. An old friend who owed him more favors than either of them cared to count. Turn on the news, Detective Ray Carmichael said without preamble. Channel 4. Walter grabbed the remote. The screen flickered to life mid-broadcast. Discovered early this morning at Pier 19. Police say the vehicle belongs to Stephen Cook, age 34, reported missing since Friday night. While no body has been recovered, authorities found Cook's vest and identification inside the vehicle, along with what appears to be blood on the steering wheel. Walter's jaw tightened. The camera panned to show Cook's black Toyota, driver's door open, water lapping against the dock's edge. Tell me you had nothing to do with this, Ray said over the phone, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. I haven't seen Stephen since Friday. That's not what I asked. Walter's silence spoke volumes. Ray exhaled heavily. Walter, I've looked the other way for years because you keep order in a neighborhood the department can't control. But this is different. This is a missing person case with your name written all over it. The viral video, the timing, the location, it's a 5-minute drive from La Fiamma. Stephen left on his own. What he did after that isn't my concern. Except everyone thinks it is. The DA's already talking about bringing you in for questioning. Then let her talk. Damn it, Walter. Walter ended the call. He stood at his window, watching the sunrise paint the river gold, and felt nothing. Not guilt, not satisfaction. Just the cold certainty that comes from doing what needed to be done. His phone buzzed again. This time a text from Linda. Are you seeing this? Please tell me you didn't. He didn't respond. Linda arrived at La Fiamma 20 minutes later, using the back entrance to avoid the news vans already gathering out front. She found Walter in his office, the TV muted on the same news coverage. Did you kill him? She asked, closing the door behind her. Walter didn't look up. No. Did you have him killed? No. Then where is he? I don't know. Linda studied his face, searching for the lie. You're telling me Stephen just happened to disappear the same night you confronted him, and his car just happened to end up at the docks? And you had nothing to do with it? Walter finally met her eyes. I told him to leave the city. I told him what would happen if he didn't. What he chose after that was his decision. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Linda's hands clenched into fists. You promised me you were going to do things differently. You said you wanted to build something better. How is this better? Stephen made his choice Friday night when he put his knee through your face. I gave him an out a chance to walk away. If he chose to run in the wrong direction, that's on him. You sound just like your father. The comparison hit like a slap. Walter's expression darkened, but Linda didn't back down. You want to know the difference between justice and anger? She pressed. Justice has rules. Justice has process. What you did, whatever you did, that's just revenge dressed up in a code you use to justify violence. You think Stephen deserved better? I think you deserve better than becoming the monster everyone already thinks you are. Her voice cracked on the last word. Walter saw it then, not just anger, but disappointment. She'd started to believe in him, in the possibility of change, and now she was watching that hope crumble. I didn't touch Stephen, Walter said quietly. I swear on my mother's memory. I threatened him, yes. I scared him, yes. But I didn't lay another hand on him after that night. Then who did? I don't know. But when you spend years making enemies, eventually one of them catches up. Linda wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But the timing, the location, the convenient disappearance, it was too perfect, too clean. The police are going to come for you, she said. I know. And when they do, I'll tell them the truth. Stephen quit. He left. I don't know where he went. They won't believe you. They don't have to. They need proof, and there isn't any. Linda moved toward the door, her hand on the handle. I can't be part of this, Walter. I can't work for someone who what, protected you? Gave you a second chance? Offered you a voice in rebuilding this place? She turned back, tears threatening. Who might be a murderer? The word hung between them like smoke. Walter stood, his voice dropping to something almost pleading. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm asking you to give me the benefit of doubt until the truth comes out. Can you do that? Linda's hand trembled on the doorknob. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions at empty air. Inside, 2 people stood at a crossroads neither had expected. 1 week, Linda said finally. If the truth doesn't come out in 1 week, I'm done. Walter nodded slowly. 1 week. She left without another word. Wednesday night, 11:47 p.m. Linda's apartment buzzer rang, jarring her from restless half-sleep. She grabbed her phone, no calls, no texts. The buzzer rang again, more insistent. She pressed the intercom. Who is it? It's Walter. Her stomach dropped. What are you doing here? Please, I need to talk to you. Every instinct screamed at her to send him away. But something in his voice, something raw and unguarded, made her hesitate. She buzzed him up. 2 minutes later, Walter stood in her doorway. No coat, just a dark Henley and jeans. His knuckles were bruised, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He looked less like a crime boss and more like a man coming apart at the seams. There are reporters following me, he said. 3 cars. I lost them in Harlem, but they'll find me eventually. I shouldn't have come here. I'm sorry. Linda stepped aside. Get in before someone sees you. He entered her small studio, taking in the second-hand furniture, the hot plate kitchenette, the single window overlooking a brick wall. A life lived on the margins, invisible to people like him. You want coffee? She asked, needing something to do with her hands. I want to tell you the truth. Linda sat on her futon, gesturing for him to continue. Walter remained standing, too restless to sit. Stephen's not dead, he said. At least I don't think he is. You don't think? After I confronted him Friday, I had 2 of my guys escort him to Port Authority. Gave him cash, told him to get on a bus and never come back. They watched him buy a ticket to Philadelphia. That's the last anyone saw of him. Then whose blood is in his car? I don't know, but I've been making calls, asking questions. Someone's setting me up, Linda. Someone who wants me to take the fall for Stephen's disappearance. Linda processed this. Who would do that? Walter finally sat, perched on the edge of her desk chair. I've made enemies. Rival crews who want my territory. Cops I wouldn't pay off. Even people in my own organization who think I'm going soft. Are you? The question seemed to surprise him. What? Going soft. Is that what this is? You spare Stephen, and now someone's using it against you? Walter's laugh was bitter. My whole life, I've been told that mercy is weakness, that the moment you show compassion, someone will exploit it. And maybe they're right. Maybe I should have. Don't, Linda interrupted. Don't finish that sentence. Their eyes met. In the dim light of her apartment, Walter looked younger somehow, vulnerable. I didn't come here to drag you into this, he said quietly. I came because you're the only person who's looked at me in years and seen something other than what I've built. And I needed to remember that person still exists. Linda's defenses wavered. Walter. My mother's name was Rosa, he continued, the words spilling out like confession. She worked as a seamstress in the Bronx before she married my father. Had the gentlest hands I've ever seen. Could mend anything, clothes, toys, broken hearts. His voice cracked slightly. After that night in the bar, after my father made that man disappear, she was never the same. She stopped singing, stopped smiling. It was like watching someone fade in real time. She died when I was 16. Heart attack, the doctor said. But I knew better. She died because she'd spent 8 years living with a man who'd killed for her, and that burden was too heavy to carry. Tears glistened in Linda's eyes. I'm sorry. I swore I'd never become him, Walter said. Never let violence be my first answer. But somewhere along the way, I built my entire identity around his code. And now I don't know how to be anything else. The vulnerability in his confession was staggering. This man who commanded fear and respect across half of Manhattan was sitting in her apartment, stripped down to his trauma and doubt. Linda moved to sit beside him. Not touching, but close enough to bridge the distance. You want to know why I really came back Monday? She asked. Walter looked at her, waiting. Because when I was 14, my stepfather used to hit my mother. Every weekend, like clockwork. Neighbors heard. Nobody helped. One night, it got so bad I called 911. Cops came, took statements, left. He beat her worse after they were gone. Her hands trembled in her lap. I learned early that the law doesn't always protect you, that sometimes the system fails, and you're left with nothing but the choices you make in that moment. So when you walked into La Fiamma and actually did something, when you didn't just stand there like everyone else, it meant something to me. Not because of the violence, but because someone finally stepped in. Walter's throat tightened. Linda, you're not your father, she said firmly. Your father solved problems with permanence. You gave Stephen a choice. That's the difference. That's where change starts. And if he's really dead, if someone killed him and I'm blamed, then we prove you didn't do it. We? Linda met his eyes. 1 week, remember? I said I'd give you 1 week. I meant it. For the first time in days, Walter felt something other than dread. He felt hope. Thursday afternoon, Walter's phone rang with a number he hadn't seen in 2 years. We need to meet, the voice said. Now. 20 minutes later, Walter sat in a corner booth at a diner in Queens, across from Vincent Russo, his father's oldest associate, now in his 70s but still sharp as broken glass. You're being reckless, Vincent said, stirring sugar into black coffee. The viral video, the missing manager, the girl. You're drawing attention we don't need. I handled it. You handled it like your father would have, with violence and ego. But times have changed, Walter. We operate in shadows now, not spotlights. Walter's jaw tightened. What do you want, Vincent? The old man slid a manila folder across the table. Information about your waitress. Walter's blood went cold. He opened the folder. Inside were documents, background checks, employment records, and most damning of all, email correspondence between Linda Mays and Jordan Blake, investigative journalist for the New York Observer. The subject lines told the story. Ray, trafficking investigation, La Fiamma Bar, source protection protocol, evidence gathering timeline. Walter's hands shook as he read. Linda wasn't just a waitress. She was an embedded source, investigating suspected human trafficking operations running through high-end Manhattan bars, including his. How long have you known? Walter asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Since Monday. One of our contacts at the Observer flagged her name after the video went viral. Apparently, she's been working with Blake for 3 months, gathering evidence on several establishments. Yours was her final target. Walter felt like he'd been punched in the chest. Every conversation, every vulnerable moment, every piece of trust he'd offered, all of it potentially a lie. Is there trafficking at La Fiamma? Vincent asked. No. You know I don't allow that. I know what you say you don't allow. But you can't watch every corner, every deal, every transaction. If someone's running girls through your bar and you don't know it, that's almost worse than doing it yourself. Walter's mind raced. If she's gathering evidence, why destroy her notes? Why stay after Friday? Vincent shrugged. Maybe she found nothing. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe she's playing a longer game. Or maybe... He leaned forward. She actually started to believe in you. The possibility felt more dangerous than any threat. What do you want me to do? Walter asked. Cut her loose. Tonight. Before this blows back on all of us. And if I don't? Vincent's expression hardened. Then you're choosing a stranger over family. And that's a choice with consequences. Walter returned to La Fiamma in a daze, the folder burning like evidence in his hand. It was early evening. Pre-dinner service. Linda was behind the bar, training a new hire, laughing at something Tyler said. She looked so genuine. So real. Linda, Walter called from across the room. My office. Now. Her smile faded at his tone. She followed him down the hallway, confusion turning to concern as he slammed the door. Walter, what's wrong? He threw the folder on his desk, documents scattered. Linda's face went pale as she recognized the letterhead. When were you going to tell me? Walter's voice was acid. Before or after you published your exposé? Walter, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been lying since day one? That every conversation, every moment of trust was part of your investigation? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He advanced, not threatening but desperate for answers. Tell me the truth, Linda. For once, just tell me the goddamn truth. Linda's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Yes, I was working with Jordan Blake. Yes, I came to La Fiamma looking for evidence of trafficking. But I found nothing, Walter. Nothing. Because you're not running that kind of operation. And that's supposed to make this better? I destroyed my notes, she shouted back. After Friday, after seeing who you really were, I told Jordan I was done. I walked away from the story. Why should I believe you? Because I'm still here, her voice broke. I could have sold that video to every news outlet in the country. I could have spun this whole thing against you. But I didn't. Because somewhere between getting hired and getting hurt, I stopped seeing a story and started seeing a person. Walter wanted to believe her. God, he wanted to. But trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. How do I know you're not still feeding information to Blake? Linda pulled out her phone, pulled up her messages, and thrust it at him. Read them. Every text since Friday. I told him I quit. He's been trying to convince me to reconsider, but I refused. Check the timestamps, Walter. Check everything. Kai. Walter took the phone, scrolling through messages. Jordan Blake. Linda, you can't just walk away. We're so close. Linda, I'm done. Delete my notes. Jordan, think about all the women we could help. Linda, I thought about one woman who needed help and no one moved. Then one man did. That's my answer. The final message was from yesterday. Jordan, you're making a mistake. Linda, maybe, but it's mine to make. Walter's anger deflated into exhaustion. He handed back her phone and sat heavily in his chair. You should have told me, he said quietly. I know. I opened up to you, told you things I've never told anyone. I know, she whispered. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Silence filled the office, not hostile, but heavy with broken trust and uncertain futures. Vincent wants me to fire you, Walter finally said. Says you're a liability. Linda straightened. Then fire me. I don't want to. Then don't. Walter looked up, meeting her red-rimmed eyes. Why did you really stay, Linda? And don't give me some noble answer about justice. I want the real reason. Linda took a shaky breath. Because I spent 3 months investigating monsters, and when I finally met you, I realized you were just a man trying to honor a broken code. And I thought, maybe if I stayed, I could help you build a better one. You still think that's possible? After everything? Do you? The question hung between them, a challenge, an invitation, a last chance. Walter stood, moving to the window overlooking the bar floor. He watched his staff prepare for the evening rush, good people, trying to make a living in a world that made that harder than it should be. My father would have had you disappeared, he said. No questions, no second chances. Just gone. But you're not your father. No, Walter agreed. I'm not. He turned to face her. You stay, but no more secrets, no more investigations. You work for me, not a newspaper. And if Blake comes around again, you tell me immediately. Linda nodded, relief flooding her features. Deal. And Linda? Yeah. If you ever lie to me again, Vincent won't have to convince me to let you go. The weight of the threat was clear, but so was the underlying message. I'm giving you another chance. Don't waste it. Linda extended her hand. No more lies. Walter shook it. No more lies. As she left his office, Walter sat back down, exhausted but oddly hopeful. They'd crossed a chasm together, damaged, uncertain, but still standing. Outside his window, the neon sign flickered to life. La Fiamma. Still burning, still fighting, still trying to be better than yesterday. Friday morning brought unexpected news. Stephen Cook was alive. The call came from Detective Carmichael at 7 a.m. Walter was already at La Fiamma, doing inventory, when his phone buzzed. We found him, Ray said. Philadelphia PD picked him up last night. He's alive, banged up, but talking. Walter's grip tightened on a bottle of vodka he'd been counting. What's he saying? That's the interesting part. He's not pressing charges against you. Says he left voluntarily. Got jumped by some guys at the Philly bus station who stole his car keys. Claims he's been hiding out. Scared. Didn't know his car was found until we contacted him. You believe him? Ray paused. His story checks out. Security footage shows him at Port Authority Friday night, then at the Philly station Saturday morning. ER records show he was treated for a broken rib and facial contusions Saturday afternoon. Either he's telling the truth, or someone coached him very well. What about the blood in his car? Preliminary tests show it matches Stephen's DNA. The working theory is whoever jumped him took his keys, drove the car back to Manhattan, staged it at the docks. Why? We don't know yet. But Walter, you're off the hook, for now. Walter exhaled slowly. Thank you, Ray. Don't thank me. Thank whatever luck you've got left. And Walter, stop making my job harder. The line went dead. Walter stood in his empty bar, surrounded by bottles and memories, and felt something he hadn't felt in days. Relief. Not just because the investigation was over, but because his instinct had been right. He hadn't killed Stephen. Hadn't even seriously hurt him beyond that first night. Maybe there was hope for redemption after all. By noon, the news had spread. Stephen Cook found alive. No charges filed. Walter Lopez cleared of suspicion. The media narrative shifted overnight. The bar that had been called a den of violence became a workplace standing up for employees. Think pieces pivoted. When justice operates outside the law, the Walter Lopez question. Linda arrived for her shift to find Walter on a stepladder, taking down old staff rules posted behind the bar, faded, yellowed notices about dress codes and disciplinary procedures. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Starting over," he said simply, pulling down the last poster. "Help me with something." "Help me with something." He led her to his office, where a fresh whiteboard stood against the wall, completely blank. "You said I needed to build something better. Show me how." Linda stared at the whiteboard, then at Walter. This wasn't a test, it was an invitation. She picked up a marker. At the top, she wrote in bold letters, La Fiamma Code of Conduct. Underneath, she began listing principles. 1. Respect is non-negotiable for staff and customers. 2. Violence is never the first response. 3. Everyone deserves dignity, regardless of position. 4. Mistakes happen. How we handle them matters. 5. This bar protects its people. Always. Walter read each line, nodding slowly. When she finished, he took the marker and added one more. 6. Leadership means accountability. Starting at the top. Linda smiled, a real one. "You sure about that last one?" "No, but you're going to help me figure it out." Over the next hour, they worked together, refining the code, discussing enforcement, planning how to communicate changes to the staff. It felt less like boss and employee, more like partners building something neither could create alone. "We need to fire people," Linda said carefully. "Reading through those complaints, there are staff members who've been problems for years. If we're serious about change, we can't keep them." Walter nodded. "Make a list. I'll handle it personally. And hiring? We need to rebuild trust. Bring in people who believe in what we're trying to do. You have hiring authority. Anyone you bring in, I'll approve." Linda set down the marker, studying him. "You're really doing this, actually changing things." "I'm trying. That's all I can promise." A knock interrupted them. Tyler stuck his head in, looking nervous. "Boss, there's someone here to see both of you." Walter and Linda exchanged glances and followed Tyler to the main floor. Standing by the bar was Jordan Blake, 30-something, athletic build, expensive camera bag over his shoulder. He looked every bit the crusading journalist. "Mr. Lopez." Jordan extended his hand. "Jordan Blake, New York Observer. I believe you know why I'm here." Walter didn't shake. "I know who you are, and you're not welcome." Jordan's expression remained professional. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to offer an opportunity. I'm not interested in your exposé." "There is no exposé." Jordan glanced at Linda. "My source withdrew from the investigation. But I've been following the story this week, the viral video, the missing manager, the resolution. It's compelling. And I think there's a bigger story here about accountability and change. You want to write about me? I want to write the truth. With your cooperation, it could be a story about transformation instead of criminality. Without your cooperation, I write what I can from public records and speculation." Walter's jaw tightened. "That sounds like a threat." "It's reality. The story exists whether you participate or not. I'm offering you a chance to shape the narrative." Linda stepped forward. "Jordan, we had an agreement. I told you I was done. And I respect that. But this isn't about you anymore, Linda. This is about whether La Fiamma becomes a cautionary tale or a case study in doing better." Walter considered this. His entire life, he'd operated in shadows, avoided scrutiny, controlled his image through fear and reputation. Now a journalist was offering him transparency, the most dangerous thing he could accept. "What would this story look like?" Walter asked carefully. "Interviews with you, your staff, customers, documentation of the changes you're implementing, full transparency about what happened, what went wrong, and how you're fixing it. No puff piece, but fair coverage. And if I refuse, then I write what I can verify, which includes a lot of questions and very few answers. Your choice." Walter looked at Linda. She gave the smallest nod, not permission, but encouragement. "One condition," Walter said. "You don't publish anything without running it by me first. I'm not giving you editorial control, but I need to see what you're putting out there before it goes live. Jordan shook his head. I can't agree to that. Journalistic integrity. Then we're done here. But, Jordan continued, I can agree to fact-checking sessions where you can correct any inaccuracies before publication, and I'll give you 48 hours notice before the story runs. Walter studied the journalist, searching for the angle, the trap. But Jordan's expression was earnest, a man who actually believed in the power of truth. All right, Walter said finally, but this doesn't make us friends. I'm not here to be your friend, Mr. Lopez. I'm here to tell your story. They shook hands, an uneasy alliance between two men from different worlds, united by the uncomfortable belief that truth might actually matter. As Jordan left, Linda moved beside Walter. You sure about this? No, but hiding hasn't worked. Maybe it's time to try something different. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos. Inside La Fiamma, something new was being built, fragile, uncertain, but undeniably real. The old order was dying. The new one was just beginning. 3 months later, La Fiamma looked the same from the outside, same neon sign, same weathered brick, same corner location in Southside Manhattan. But inside, everything had changed. Linda moved through the Friday night crowd with quiet confidence. No longer the nervous new hire, but the bar's operations manager. Her bruises had long since faded, replaced by the kind of presence that comes from surviving something and choosing to stay anyway. She checked on tables, resolved a billing dispute, welcomed regulars by name. The staff, half of them new hires she'd personally recruited, worked with a synchronization that spoke to actual training and respect, rather than fear-based compliance. At table 12, a young waitress accidentally dropped a tray. Glasses shattered. The room went quiet, not with anticipation of violence, but with genuine concern. Linda was there in seconds. You okay? The waitress, Emma, 19, first job, nodded, mortified. I'm so sorry. I'll pay for. You'll clean it up, and we'll move on, Linda said gently. Accidents happen. That's why we have insurance. The relief on Emma's face was palpable. Around them, customers resumed conversation. Crisis averted without humiliation or punishment. Tyler brought a broom and dustpan, helping Emma clean up. Remember your first week? He asked Linda quietly. Every day, she replied. From his usual corner booth, Walter watched the interaction with something approaching pride. He'd aged in 3 months, not physically, but in the way men age when they stop running from themselves. More gray in his beard, fewer walls in his expression. Jordan Blake sat across from him, digital recorder between them, conducting their final interview for the article. So when you saw Linda on that floor, Jordan asked, what was your first thought? Walter considered the question carefully. He'd learned to think before speaking, to weigh his words against their impact. My first thought was rage. Pure, unfiltered anger. But underneath that was recognition, seeing my mother's face, feeling that same helplessness I felt as a child. The difference was, this time I had the power to do something. And you did. Violently. Yes. Do you regret it? Walter's eyes drifted to Linda, now laughing with the kitchen staff. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that I'd built a culture where someone like Stephen felt entitled to that behavior. But do I regret protecting her? No. Jordan made notes. You've made significant changes since then. New staff, new policies, even a partnership with a workplace safety nonprofit. Why? Because I realized violence isn't strength, it's the absence of better options. My father ruled through fear because that's all he knew. But fear doesn't build loyalty, it builds compliance. And compliance crumbles the moment you're not watching. So what does build loyalty? Walter gestured around the bar. This. Treating people with dignity, paying fair wages, creating an environment where someone can drop a tray without fearing for their job. It's not complicated, but it requires giving up control. That's the hard part. Jordan leaned forward. Some people say you're just rebranding, that underneath the new policies, you're still the same man who made Stephen Cook disappear. Stephen Cook is alive and working in Philadelphia, Walter interrupted calmly. He gave multiple statements to that effect. What happened to him wasn't my doing, but the threat was real. You admitted to me in our first interview that you threatened him, told him to leave the city or face consequences. I did, and I won't pretend otherwise. I'm not a saint, Jordan. I've done things I'm not proud of, but I'm trying to be better than I was. That's all anyone can do. Jordan studied him, then clicked off the recorder. Off the record? Walter nodded. I've interviewed a lot of powerful men. Politicians, CEOs, crime bosses. Most of them bullshit me with rehearsed answers and manufactured humility. You're the first one who actually seems uncomfortable with his own honesty. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. The article runs Monday. I think you'll be pleased. Or at least, not entirely horrified. They shook hands, a gesture that had become genuine over 3 months of interviews, fact checks, and reluctant mutual respect. As Jordan gathered his equipment, Linda approached the booth. He go easy on you? He never goes easy on anyone, Walter replied. That's why I trust him. Linda slid into the seat Jordan had vacated. The Friday night rush was winding down, the crowd thinning to regulars and night owls. Emma did well tonight, Walter observed. She's a quick learner. Reminds me of someone. Reckless and accident-prone? Linda laughed, the sound still surprised Walter. How easily joy came to her now. Determined and resilient, they sat in comfortable silence, watching their bar breathe with life that felt earned rather than feared. I've been thinking, Linda said carefully, about expanding. There's a community center 3 blocks from here that needs funding. I thought maybe La Fiamma could sponsor some programs, youth services, job training, maybe even a small restaurant incubator. Walter raised an eyebrow. You want to turn me into a philanthropist? I want to turn you into a neighbor. There's a difference. That'll cost money. We're making more than ever. And the good press from Jordan's article won't hurt. Plus, she smiled. Imagine your father's face if he could see you now. Lopez family funds after-school programs. Walter chuckled, the sound rusty but genuine. He'd think I'd lost my mind. Or found your conscience. The weight of that statement settled between them. Walter looked down at his hands, tattooed, scarred, capable of terrible things and tentative kindness in equal measure. You know what I realized? He said quietly. My father taught me that respect is taken by force. But you taught me that respect is earned through consistency. Showing up, doing right when no one's watching. That's harder than any fight I've ever been in. Linda reached across the table, placing her hand over his. Not romantic, something deeper. Partnership, understanding, shared history. You're doing the work, Walter. That's what matters. The front door opened, admitting a blast of November air and a young couple looking for somewhere warm to grab a drink. Emma greeted them with a smile, leading them to a table by the window. Walter watched the simple interaction, no intimidation, no power play, just basic human hospitality, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of purpose. He stood, helping Linda to her feet. Together, they walked the floor one last time before closing, checking on staff, ensuring everyone got home safe, being present in the way leaders should be but often aren't. As the last customer left and Tyler locked the door, Linda returned to the chalkboard by the entrance, the one Walter had written on months ago. Respect is served here. She picked up the chalk and underneath added, and earned every day. Walter read it, nodded once, and turned off the main lights. The bar fell into gentle darkness, illuminated only by the blue underlighting and the amber glow of street lamps through the windows. Same time tomorrow? Linda asked, grabbing her coat. Same time tomorrow, Walter confirmed. She headed for the exit, pausing at the door. Walter? Yeah? Thank you. For that night. For all the nights since. Thank you for staying. She smiled and disappeared into the November night. Walter stood alone in his bar, his father's legacy and his own future, built on foundations of violence but reaching toward something better. The tattoos on his arms caught the light, saints and sinners, forever inked, unchangeable. But the man wearing them? He could still evolve. He locked up, stepped into the cold Manhattan air, and walked past the glowing neon sign. Behind him, La Fiamma hummed with the heat of honest work and hard-won change. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes, it wears ink, and sometimes, it looks like a scarred man learning to be gentle in a world that never taught him how. Thanks for sticking with this story till the end. If you enjoyed it, you're going to love the next one. It's packed with unexpected turns and heartfelt moments. Click the image on your screen to keep the journey going, and make sure to hit subscribe for more amazing stories. Drop a comment and rate this story from 1 to 10. I can't wait to see what you think.